Welcome to Designing XD, our Friday show here where we highlight the Adobe XD design team, and we talk a little bit about how we work as a team and how we approach building and designing Adobe XD. I'm your host, Talin Wadsworth. I'm the lead designer for Adobe XD, and with me today I have my partner in crime, Vignesh Ramesh, design manager extraordinaire, joining me here today.
Thank you, Senator. Thank you for having me on this show. It's kind of exciting.
Definitely been wanting to have you on for a long time again, because Vignesh and I have been working really hard on just building a great team. Really.
Yep, that's right.
It's been kind of a big challenge.
Yeah, When Adobe decides we want to spend a lot of time and effort into building one of the great tools that we hope XD is going to become, that means we have to grow our team.
Yeah.
Right? And it's a challenge.
It is. It's its own design problem, really. And I think that's what's kind of interesting is I think we're both problem solvers. I think designers in general, we like to solve problems, but this sort of uses a completely the same part of our brain, but applied to organizing people and process and
yeah, it totally is. I mean, so I guess most design managers were designers themselves at one point in time, and that's how you build your career, right? And as designers, you're focused a lot on individual problem.
Yeah.
But as you sort of grow up in your career and you start to think about the bigger picture and whatnot, the other side shows shows some light, and you start to understand how the world works a little bit better. It's interesting, it's challenging, it's a totally different ball game. Trying to build a design team.
It is. Thanks for joining us. Let's say hi to everybody here in the chat for joining us here on the Friday. Cindy, Garish, Abton, Dirk. Yeah, hopefully I'm saying this all right, guys. You guys, I love sort of just being able to talk to kind of people who are all over the world here. So thank you guys for joining us. Howard, how's it going? Paul, Shrikant, Mirik, thanks for joining us, guys. If you guys have any questions about designing, UX design, you have any questions about Adobe XD, maybe you have some ideas to share with us, or if you have questions about if you yourself are a design manager or thinking about going that path in your career, let us know. So we're here to answer your questions and hopefully just share some of the insights that we've learned along the way and designing Adobe XD. So let us know. Hey Arvind, how are you? Welcome. Well, Vignesh, first you kind of were touching on it a little bit. Just tell us a little bit kind of about you and your path here at Adobe.
Sure. A lot of people ask me this, and they're a little shocked when I answer this question. But to talk about how long I've been at Adobe in general, this is my 10th year. I've had the sort of fortunate pleasure of working on different teams and growing up as a designer. So I spent a lot of time on Document Cloud before I joined the XD team.
Acrobats.
Acrobat.
Yes, everyone knows and loves Acrobats.
It's interesting, actually. The number of people who use Acrobat around the world is pretty remarkable. But the way my friends or family, when I tell them I work for Acrobat, it was like, oh, you design PDF? No, I don't design the PDF.
The thing that reads the PDF and allows you to sign confidentially all those PDFs.
It's always interesting to see how the world, when you step out and how see how the world actually thinks of the product you're working on. But anyway, getting back to the subject, so growing, Document Cloud had a similar sort of expansion at some point when we grew from a 5-person team to a 15-person team and beyond. It's close to 20, 25 people. Just designers.
About,
right?
Working across all the different sort of sub-products of that Acrobat world.
Right.
Yeah.
And it was a challenge of, the kind of challenges you really want to have. Scale is always a good challenge to have. It means something's going well, right?
Yeah.
Your product's doing well and more people are using it. You want to build on that, build on that momentum. But as you think about growing the team, one of the obvious things is you look at adding people who have talent and who can be a good complement to the team that you have, who can bring in different perspectives. So you don't want to form a team with like-minded people because that's just gonna give you, a one-way sort of one monotone of answers and solutions. You want people with a diverse sort of background, diverse skill sets to bring in different perspectives, and you want people to challenge what you're doing.
Yeah.
So as you build that team, so that's sort of the obvious part of it, actually. The thing that's a little more nuanced and subtle, I always feel, is the personality of the people you hire.
Yeah.
So as you're hiring, you take a closer look at how that person's character is going to complement your existing team.
Yeah. I mean, that's really kind of one of the dimensions here of like becoming, like, kind of growing into that design manager role, is realizing that, like, not everybody has the same skill sets.
Right.
Not everybody has the same perspectives, and not everyone is always going to share that perspective. But really, like, the biggest challenge, I think, of creating really great products or really great services, that are out there, on the web, and all the different apps that are out there, is like, it's such a big problem that you need a team that can work really tightly together, have a shared perspective, but then each bring kind of the best of their abilities to bear to really make a really great, well-rounded sort of experience or design.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's sort of, and we spoke about this multiple times in the past, and part of that also, starts to build that culture for that team. And each team is unique and different, right? And each team has a flavor, and you encourage that. You want that team to have its own identity.
Yeah.
And as you're thinking about it, and as you're thinking along the lines of culture, if you think about it, most of us spend a lot of time at work, right? And this is sort of like our second home. It should feel like that. It should feel like a second home.
Yeah. I was just going to say real quick, hi to Will joining us from Dallas, and I also wanted to sort of put it out there. What's kind of your guys' experience working with teams? Are you a freelancer? Do you work in-house with a big team? Do you work at a small design studio? Like, what are some of the lessons you learned in working with people? Because I think that's like, you're right. Like, we spend like 8-9 hours away from our sort of normal life, and we live this like work life. I mean, that's a very buzzy kind of term, right? But like, like we've got to get along. We've got to enjoy being around each other. Right. For all those things to work, because I think the other side of your job is also just like helping people stay happy.
That's absolutely
motivated, right?
Yeah, because it's
they want to work.
Part of the role of a design manager is to make sure the team feels challenged and excited to be doing what they're doing. Yeah. Right, and that kind of creates a really good positive atmosphere. Yeah. Dear guys, no, we do not have sleepovers in the office.
Maybe at some startups, but the reason they probably do sleep over at the office is probably you don't want to work there. Probably it's more than likely the case now. But we do get together outside of work. Again, because that, like, I mean, if I think about, like, there was this everybody always talks about it from like a transition from like going to like school then like into the workplace. Like when you spend so much time around these people and you have so many shared experiences, you hopefully find a place that really accepts you and really, wants you to do your best work. I think that was one of the biggest realizations for me in my career, is realizing, and design, I think design in general can feel a little competitive sometimes. And I don't know if you guys kind of have this experience, but I know I feel it a lot, that like, like we work in a very subjective field sometimes. Like there are many ways we could solve a problem. And sometimes I think when we feel too much of that competitiveness, it kind of stops us from really working well together.
Absolutely.
And so there really needs to be this element of trust, and realizing like everybody here wants you to succeed, right? In the best way possible, which is kind of freeing.
Yeah, and I mean, you hit that right. Like trust is such a big part of it, and trust is not just from I trust that you'll be able to do this job or provide designs for something. And trust is a little more deeper than that. It comes from feeling this mutual respect and really affection for your team, and really have the sense of you're part of something bigger. You're part of a larger team.
So how do you, then let's just say hi to Grant and Jeremy joining us as well from Dallas. What's going on in the Dallas area today? That's like our demographic today. How are you guys doing? You guys have questions about Adobe or design here at Adobe, about our team? We're going to share a little more about our process here in a second. But I wanted to talk about that culture piece for a minute and that building that trust. Like, what are some of the things that you want, some of the activities that like you've done to like kind of try and help build some of that trust and some of that just that culture with the team. Like, and we also think here about not just our team but also the broader Adobe design team as well.
I think part of it is just meeting outside of work, like you said, right?
Yeah.
And it's not just meeting outside your work for happy hour, but really introducing each other in your team to what you are or who you are outside of work. So that includes family or some of your hobbies, and really just expanding what each of your team members see about you, and get to know you as a person. I think that helps a lot. It helps that each person connect with each other in the team at a level that's different than if you were just in a meeting all day.
So Nisa,
right.
so Nisa was asking, how do you build trust and confidence between designers and the tech business team? That's a really good point too. That's actually another one that I wanted to touch on as well, is that like we have our team, right? But we also have, we work with product managers and engineers. Right. So what do we do there to kind of build up trust there as well?
I think that's a great question. And I think part of that is, it has a similar answer, but then it's different. You don't see them as often, or you don't sit with them necessarily in a lot of cases, right? I think there are different ways I think people have tried to achieve that. I think for us, what works is we have a lot of huddle times together. Where
weekly huddles,
daily huddles, which is sort of this informal way of just sharing and informal way of just talking about things both product and non-product related. And that helps to sort of get that relationship going. And trust, I guess, is something that's built over time. It comes when you give something, but you have to it's sort of like a give and take relationship, right? You don't expect them to trust you unless you trust them first. So it's sort of a way of building trust.
That's, I think, one of those things that I have definitely seen success with and tried to emulate with our team as well, and it includes product managers and engineers, is exposure and actually having really dedicated time on a regular basis where you come together, whether it's a design review or a huddle. Establishing a process can do a lot. People kind of know what to expect. Like, I'm going to come in every day and I'm going to see Vignesh and I'm going to find out what he's working on, and that helps me figure out in kind of relation to what I'm working on and where we might overlap. And that's how we kind of work with product management and engineering, is we have this sort of shared process that really extends not just from our design team, but also to the whole team. Because as it's grown, there's been one of the biggest challenges. So I had a couple other questions. Jeremy, maybe hopefully more to come on Project Lincoln. I know there's some things bubbling there. I haven't checked in a while myself, but yeah. And Dirk, actually, I wanted to sort of share a little graphic that I had. So it's kind of a really interesting model here at Adobe. We actually, Vignesh and I and the rest of the design team, we actually work as part of a larger Adobe design team. And I had this visual that I just thought I'd share real quick to kind of show you kind of like how, like kind of what we work on as Adobe design. We have designers who are working kind of across all of the Creative Cloud products. So we have designers working on designing Photoshop and designing XD and Illustrator, and again, like they're all part of this bigger Adobe design group, but we also build really strong collaborative teams with those products. We also have a big team, and actually I'm probably using the old logo, sorry, Sean and the branding team if you're watching this, for like our Experience Cloud, and Vignesh in his former role, the Document Cloud team. So this is kind of, again, like, we're a pretty unique team inside of Adobe where we have designers who are working on all the products, and we all kind of sit together and we have regular monthly meetings and we're all sharing ideas, and this really helps, I think, bring consistency kind of across like all of these platforms, and we really kind of try and approach it from this kind of very one Adobe sort of perspective. Yeah, so that's a little bit kind of about the broader team. But now, so what we want to talk about, I think, is we want to talk about kind of our journey on XD. And hey to everybody who's just joining us. And Massimiliano, sorry, I totally, from Berlin. I'd love to go to Berlin. Yeah. But so Anissa, so one of the biggest challenges I think design faces is exactly what kind of Anissa is talking about. Convincing business and tech teams to trust the UX process and give time and resources. Right. I think that there's always going to be pressure, right, from the business to deliver. But how? Actually, hold on. We're going to get to that, Anissa. Hopefully, in just a.
We'll touch on that.
We're going to touch on that.
We're going to touch on that.
Let's not get too ahead of ourselves here. So I wanted to kind of talk a bit about about some of the challenges that I think any new project faces, which is when originally when we started Adobe XD, there was 4 people. Really,
right.
There was a product manager, there's a designer, and there were 2 engineers. Yeah. And I gotta say, one of the biggest challenges that I've ever faced in my career was when we got kind of the go-ahead to become a real thing, like to grow from those 4 people to now a fully staffed team of engineers that are gonna go build this app for real. Mm-hmm. And you kept sort of growing that. Now there were more people to sort of bring into your regular process, where when it was 4 people, we were all sitting really close together, and we shared kind of a Slack channel, and there was just this rapid fire iteration. And this is basically like, I would design it in the morning, I'd see it implemented later that day, and then we'd move on to the next thing. And it was really quickly we were able to sort of build a shared vision. But again, there's only 4 of us.
Right.
So a lot of the challenges that come to be like, well, now how do we maintain that kind of speed and iteration and ideation, but now communicate that to dozens of people? Has been a huge part of our journey.
I mean, so just to kind of illustrate what Talin was just talking about, right? Here's some slides I put together some time back, just to give you a closer look at how just our design team, and not the broader XD team, but just our design team has grown. In 6 months, we literally doubled in size. And
that's across the full platform.
It's across
Mac and Windows, mobile, and the web.
Right, that's right.
Yeah.
And with scale's exciting. Scale obviously means we're investing a lot of time and money and effort into this. But we needed to figure out a way to be efficient with our goals of trying to release something amazing every month.
Oh, that's right. That's a big challenge.
It's a big challenge.
That's part of the equation that I think you particularly, Vignesh, are really plugged into, which is we've committed to, for XD, like releasing like monthly updates.
Right.
So how do Anissa, as you were saying, like how do we build in the time for the designers, right, to really explore something, an idea, to its full potential,
right,
without just having to design it one day and really rush it into development the next day.
Yeah, and so going back to the whole trust conversation, I think this is something, Talin, you started a little while ago, which was you work with the product and engineering teams, and you have a shared understanding of how you're going to develop things for XD.
A shared process.
A shared process. Yeah. So this is a very high-level glance of a 3-phased approach, which all of design, engineering, and product management, they all align to.
They all follow.
They all follow and understand and speak the same language, right? And at that point, it starts to slowly get easier to communicate. And really what this means is, for anything we want to throw out there in the public in XD, we start off with a phase called discovery, where we're really just learning more about the problem, what problems we should be solving, talking to a lot of users, and we start to get into plan where we start designing a little bit, and then engineering takes on the implementation.
Yep. And just to touch on the JIRA piece of it, we've actually chosen to track this process inside of a tool. And here at Adobe, we kind of use JIRA as that tracking tool.
Right.
Yep.
And just to go dig a little deeper into how we use JIRA. So typically what would happen is, product manager would start an epic, in JIRA, and then the designer and engineer together with the product management will create stories for each of them to start tackling, and that's how things are a little more closely tracked. You can start putting things like dates and whatnot to keep things in check and make sure that we're kind of going towards our goals, or achieving success for each thing at a reasonable pace.
And setting expectations. I think that's the big challenge is right is like you with that discovery process. Like, where are we in our process? Are we in discovery where we don't quite know what this feature is yet,
right?
Or what we want to go and tackle, versus like plan where we know what the feature is. Right. Now we're kind of in execution mode and we're ready to get it out there. And then there's the implementation phase. Right. And then get it ready for shipping in the product the next month. Right.
Right. Absolutely.
There's a question here that Subha had that I really just maybe little sidebar here that I thought was really great before it rolls through the chat is how do you take feedback and suggestions as a team? How do we take that whether it's critique or feedback from the team or from users, and especially if there are like conflicting points of view, like how do we resolve that?
I think it's a great question, and I think part of my role as a design manager actually kind of falls into that, which is it happens a lot. You're going to have people with difference of opinions. A lot of times, it's possible to dig into usability studies or dig into some user research to help us answer some of those questions.
The questions if there's a dispute.
If there's a dispute, but sometimes that's not as cut and clear. It's not as black and white. It's a little bit of gray. I think what I fall back on a lot is, let's go with what we think is going to be reasonable. A lot of times it's not going to be a perfect solution. We don't want to drag our feet trying to get to a perfect solution, trying to get everyone to align, because then we're just depriving ourselves. The way I tend to think about a lot of these things is, if we think this is a reasonable solution, we can maybe put it out there, see how it does, get real feedback, get more feedback, and learn from how users are using it, and you can evolve it.
That's really kind of interesting about like how we think about our process when it comes to like thinking about like also how we deliver the application, right? Like that we aren't trying to solve it perfectly every time, right? And I think that there are, personally, I always take the approach that like there is no kind of one solution to a design problem. Absolutely. There could be many solutions. Absolutely. We don't know what's right. And part of, I think, what's really great about like how we designers are able to deliver the designs for apps and services today is that we have the chance to make it better through whether it's analytics or direct customer visits or feedback from the team. Right. Yeah. One thing that I want to touch on, Subha, that I think again like tried to do is actually be really open to everybody's feedback. And in part of building trust is actually acknowledging someone else's ideas and showing them that you care and actually trying it out rather than sort of always being very defensive about your designs, being very open. And if you can build that open channel, if you can show that you're really honestly taking that person's critique and feedback and really treating it seriously, even if it's the wrong answer, but if you can show them by whether trying it in that that way or making that change, even if it's wrong, just doing that can build a lot of trust between those designers. And I think that's one thing we try and really foster in our design team is building that trust, and so that everybody feels very open and very free to give feedback and very open to taking that feedback, and that it's all coming from a place of shared sort of vision and trust.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, so if you guys let us know if you have any questions about XD. Like, I know there's a conversation kind of going on about like, what is XD for? Well, XD is for actually trying to solve some of those design problems before you go into code. So, creating a really high fidelity design and making your interactive prototype, and then sharing that for feedback. And that's actually kind of like what we build XD for. Yep. And we actually use XD to design XD.
It's true all the time.
Using that design prototype share process, which is always kind of fun to talk about. So, let's go kind of back to some of our process. So we identify that we put a story in, right? So that everybody knows what everybody's working on. I think that's really key with a big team is knowing like who's working on what and when are we going to see something?
Right.
When are we going to get a delivery?
Yeah,
on this?
just to sort of track that a little bit more,
Yeah,
the way we
yeah.
work is in sprints, right?
Yep.
And we kind of align ourselves with the engineering and product sprints, but it's a little bit separated in that a design sprint is going to look a lot different. Sometimes you might need 2, 3. It's hard to predict how many sprints we're going to need to solve a particular problem. It's not as I guess relatively it's not as easy to predict, right?
Yeah, there's not like one, or there's not one way to test it.
Right.
All the time, yeah.
And you might spend 2 weeks on it or 4 weeks on it, and you're probably still not happy with where you are, and you want to spend more time. But generally, we try and follow along a process of, okay, let's say we want to spend a few sprints in discovery, figuring out what kind of problems we want to solve. And inside of each sprint, we have regular check-ins and design crits or brainstorms to help our team and designers sort of share ideas, share what they're working on with each other, and really evolve the problem and the solution for that.
And deliver, right?
And deliver,
because I think that's one thing that, like, I think particularly when you're making that transition from school to work, that one of those lessons that you learn right away is that whether it's perfect or not, sometimes we have to deliver, right? To keep our process moving forward. And so, yeah, this has been really amazing, sort of having you sort of come and help the team organize around this sprint process to build that trust, but then also to move designs through a process to then deliver for engineering.
Yeah, and I think one of the areas where designers often get stuck is, when they have to make a hard decision.
Yeah.
And I think part of my role is to help them make that decision. Because if you put so much pressure on yourself to make a decision and you're trying to get it right every single time,
You're doing that in isolation.
and you're going to be slow about it. You're going to feel like the world is on your shoulders type of thing. And I think part of my role is just to help them think through it. Yes, you're making a decision, but if it doesn't work out, it doesn't work out, and you can fix it. And try and get them to make quicker decisions and learn quicker from things that don't work.
And kind of offloading some of that to the team, right?
Right, absolutely.
And really building, again, through a regular process, building trust, but then, really allowing that team in this process to really help you move things along.
Absolutely.
Because you might come in to, whether it's we touched on a topic in the brainstorm, or we're just all being kind of like free thinking and really just thinking ahead a little bit, versus like the design crits where we're getting much more tactical feedback, things that are really meant to help us move along. And we might make a new connection, realize something could be tried a different way, and really relying on the team to kind of help move forward, make those decisions.
Absolutely.
So, Dirk, it's great to hear that you XD. Hopefully it's not perfect yet. We have a long way to go. We have really exciting stuff in store this year. I mean, we just launched some really great features just the other day. If you guys haven't downloaded the new update, the June update, go get it. Fixed elements, overlays, keeps getting better with every release. Again, it's really thanks to, I think, to process and a lot of times, and just some great work from our talented designers. We really, I've become very attached to this process. I was a little skeptical initially, like when we started scaling that team, but we needed some kind of process to help make sure that we're
I feel like
delivering.
Especially because we're on this really amazingly crazy goal sets of like monthly releases and whatnot. You need some structure to help us efficiently get to that goal.
Yeah. Team hug. Yeah, we need that team hug at the end of these sprints.
It's just a really quick thing.
This is really cool too. This is a cool thing. Yeah, this is a fun thing.
So a lot of teams in the past, I've been a part of teams where we get weekly status updates, right? And it's usually, what are you doing, what you're not doing?
Yeah.
What did you do last week?
What did you do last week? Yeah.
Everyone hates that, right?
Yeah.
Who wants to keep writing their status? So what we did recently was to switch that to just emojis. We're like, you know what, just give me an emoji that relates to how you feel this week. And I think it's somewhat relatively successful.
I think it's been doing pretty well.
More people, give us an emoji every week than they used to give statuses.
Oh man, I mean, just some of the nuts and bolts, right, of how we work within that design sprint is we're all on Slack. We all have a shared Slack channel. We have shared Slack channels with the design team, but then also the whole team. And yeah, we also used to have these. I remember we had our, sometimes we're working with a project manager and we're just putting out these lists of status, but it was really hard to parse. And it was really, it actually really felt like a huge effort just to do that every week.
Right.
So now we have a Slack channel that's just called Design Status, and Vignesh runs that, and every designer checks in every Monday with their emoji.
Give me your emoji, and that's all I ask. And it's literally something you can do on your way, as you're commuting to work. How do you feel? Give me an emoji. I think that's all I had really to talk about. I'm curious to see if anyone has any questions or
so we have another minute or so. So you guys so Rachel, why do we use Slack? So actually, Slack is really funny. It coincided with us actually starting XD. So the minute we had our XD, the original 4 of us, we had a Slack channel, and it was public. It was open to everybody inside the design team. And it just helps us communicate and share ideas and just expose ideas to things earlier. So Slack's been great. So this emoji thing has been great. And and like building a team is really important. The only way we kind of achieve this, and we ship these great features for XD, and we just keep improving on a product like XD, I think, is through process. And I am so thankful to have Vignesh on the team, who brings all these great talents. It's like said, I really loved what you did with your previous team, and again, like everybody out there using XD today, I think it has really benefited from Vignesh's time on the product so far, and great things to come in the future, I think, for this product and this team. So,
well, thanks, Talin.
Thanks for joining.
It's exciting to be here. I just want to call out one thing. So, Mirek, I think, in the way back, asked about DC not working on your Mac. Ping us offline. Yeah, we'll need to figure that out.
You guys can find us on Twitter. We're always happy to take your questions and give feedback.
Right.
Let us know, and we're going to be going on break. So we'll be back in July on the 13th.
Right.
Join us for Designing Adobe XD, and we'll have another great guest on and be covering a really great topic, and maybe I'll have some new features to share.
It's exciting.
All right.
Exciting times.
All right. Thanks, everybody.
Thanks, everyone.